Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Strategy Gaming Dojo, where we find, learn, and play one more turn of the great strategy games. Today, it's back into Gary Grigsby's War in the Pacific, Admirals Edition. This is our play-by-email challenge against the devilish Mr. Lodrick. And it is now January 22nd, 1942, this last combat resolution. There wasn't a whole lot that happened. There were some cargo ships that went down. That's pretty normal. My main worry right now is in China. We're going to go look at China. But first of all, let's go look to the stats. Look to the stats. There we go. Okay, now we're looking at the stats. All right, over here, you'll see we ran excuse me, about 5,500 sorties yesterday, or during the last turn. For the campaign, it's about 110,000. The Japanese took a little time off, it seems, last time. I don't know if Lodrick was giving his bombers a bit of a rest. They probably need it. The amount of ordnance that they've dropped in China has got to exceed probably all the ordnance that Japan dropped in the entire World War II. It's been incredible. Great job by him. For the campaign, you can see he's outpacing us 169K to 110K or so. Air-to-air losses. Now, we took 18, he took 1. Some of this is in China. Some of this is our new fighters that we got in Australia. We're essentially putting them up just to let him know we've got them there. I want those carriers out of there. We've got to start operating out of Australia, and we don't have great pilots yet. Now, I'm replacing them quickly with other pilots that have lost their rides. And so you'll have pilots that were in squadrons that have been destroyed or planes that have been destroyed that will end up back in the reserves. And you should always go look at those. Maybe we'll go check that out this time and put those more experienced pilots in places where you need them or where the action is heated up. Destroyed on the field, 0 and 0. Destroyed by flak, 0 and 0. Operational. He's been taking more operational losses than us recently, mainly because we're getting, quite a bit of flak up into the air. And when we do that, he gets damaged, and some of those planes are not going to make it back to the airfields. We have 375 political points. That's enough to buy out some air squadrons, maybe some commands, maybe some smaller groups like those Raider battalions that we have started to show up. It's not big enough or enough to buy out a battalion or a regiment yet. I would like to buy out one, so I'm kind of saving these up a little bit. Um, Lodrick has pulled into the lead, which is normal. Now, I would say he's there a little bit sooner than we would like. I mean, he's at 96.14, we're at 91.95, but he's yet to march into Singapore, which gives him an immediate 1,800 points. So he is going to widen that lead. Now, the kind of the benchmarks, I've mentioned this several times now, we just can't allow it to get to 4-1 that he's ahead of us in points in 1943. That's it. I mean, that's the benchmark. Okay, over here, bases controlled. We still have 522. The Japanese have 315. Although he will continue to add these, obviously, there are a lot of bases on those small islands. Once he takes the Dutch East Indies, there's a lot of bases there. So he will probably eventually take the lead here. We're trying to slow that as much as we can. Aircraft points lost. We're showing we've lost 680 points from aircraft losses. He's lost 382. Army points lost. I mean, this is just, I've never seen anything like this in a game I've played. 3458 to 63. He's just continuing to bomb like crazy in China and then to come along and just mop up our troops that are completely disrupted and devastated. Allied ship sunk 334. We're showing only 3 Japanese sunk. I think it's more than that. But we've got fog of war, so we just don't know. Aircraft losses, we could go look at that. Let's see what planes we have coming in soon. We've got some Hurricane. These are recon planes. These Hurricane PR2s. They'll go into Rangoon. That's a good thing. I mean, we've been surprised at Rangoon before, right? So the more recon planes we can get up over and around that area. You remember the disaster at Port Blair. A big part of that is we just didn't have good recon around the Rangoon area. These two will help provide some of that. We've got some Blenheim medium bombers coming into Aden. Okay, I mean, we'll stick them over in India and have them train until we actually need ground bombing. We've got a bunch of B-17 Fortresses coming into Camp Pendleton. We'll probably end up putting those up in Ogden, where we've got our B-17 training going on. This is the important ones at this stage of the game. The fighters. We need all the fighters we can get to protect ports. We've got to protect ports and airfields. You see, we get 75 Airacobras coming into the eastern U.S. port. We'll immediately get those on the rails down to Los Angeles. Once they get to Los Angeles, we'll load them up. You can use dry cargo ships for that, and so we should have something. Make sure we've got something in Los Angeles in about 2 to 3 turns so we can get all 75 of these planes out into the Pacific. More fortresses, more Airacobras. They just keep coming in. I'm excited about this one right here, number 136 Squadron RAF Hurricane 2B Trops. We get 16 fighters in 6 days at Aden. We've got to get those again on a air transport as fast as we can, get it to India, and start hopping it down the Indian uh, continent, subcontinent, right? We've got to start hopping it down there so that we could either put this in Colombo, Rangoon, Calcutta, or Madras. Those are the four places where we really need fighters. And if we look at this, it's attached to 221 Group RAF. That's in Rangoon. So I think we'll try to get these all the way to Rangoon. We've got more trops coming if we went down here. Um, Here's 16 more. Squadron 3 or Squadron 30 in 34 days in Aden. But we've got some that are on boats now trying to get to India. Some of those we'll put in Colombo, again, Calcutta, Madras, Rangoon. Those are the four important places to get your fighters as fast as you can. Ship sunk. Let's look at last turn. Okay, that's what we want to see, right? We lost, 7 ships. We don't want to see that, but they're all 1 point ships. We've got an AMC, a little local mine sweep. We've got some motor launch here, and that's all we lost. Yeah, the 3 local mine sweepers and 4 HDMLs. If we can, continue to tighten it up like that, we'll be in pretty good shape. Ship availability, let's go to ETA, let's reverse that, and let's go to the top. You can see APs, AKs, we got some coming into Cape Town, Cristobal, LA, just your usual mass amount of cargo ships that you get for the Allies. You can also see we've got 3 subs coming in, 2 into Balboa, 1 into LA in 3 days. We've got the light cruiser Sumatra in 5 days coming into Surabaya. Now, we've essentially abandoned Surabaya from a naval perspective, so we'll probably want to float this out. I don't know. We'll take it to either Colombo or Perth, I would imagine. We get the battleship Idaho in 9 days in San Francisco. We get another destroyer in a Cape Town, and so on and so forth. Another battleship, this one a British one, the Revenge at Cape Town in 15 days. And then, wow, okay. In Cape Town in 24 days, we get 2 more battleships, the Ramillies and the Resolution. The Americans get the Nashville, the light cruiser Nashville at Balboa, and we get 2 destroyers out at Aden. So, as you can see, you just keep, 3 more subs in a month or so. It just keeps coming and coming and coming as the Allies. Group reinforcement or I'm sorry, group ground reinforcement. Get a lot of South Pacific stuff all up at the eastern U.S. We'll have to get that out on the rails to Los Angeles. We get these group base forces, 221. Now this would be ticketed normally for Rangoon. We'll see if we can get it in there. We also have the 224 group. I think 224 I've got at Calcutta. I think we're going to put the RAF 224 at Calcutta. 222 is at Colombo, 225 is at Madras, and I just don't remember off the top of my head where 223 is. Potentially Bombay. That would be so you've got 221, 222, 223, 224, 225, right? And for each one of those, you get a command. Now, we don't have a couple of these commands, but then you also get a base force and an engineering or an air wing group. I like to put, of course, all three of the 221s together, all three of the 222s together. So again, I've got 221 in Rangoon, 222 in Colombo. 224 hasn't appeared yet, and I'm just not sure. I think this is the one I got ticketed for Calcutta. Um, the Viper Force comes into Rangoon soon, so we naturally just get this Viper Force that'll come into Rangoon. We get some things into Madras, including the 23rd India. We get a full division in at Madras, which is awesome. 183 assault. We need that. We need everything into India that we can get because that's the coming battleground. It's going to be Burma, and then we've got to hold everything in India, or we will lose this game. So kind of the same with Australia, really. I mean, we've got to hold Australia and India. If we hold those two, we'll be fine. He's going to take the Dutch East Indies. He'll probably take Burma, although we're going to try to hold on there. He'll probably take some of the string of islands. It's all about New Zealand, Australia, India. You got to keep them. We're getting a 257 group in at Chongqing here, 81st Chinese Corps. We keep getting manpower just over and over and over at Chongqing. And thank goodness, because as I said, we're really going to go look at China after we go around the map. Okay, I think that's pretty good for just the overview. Let's just kind of go look at the quadrants of the map. Eastern U.S., you can see we've got some ships here. I don't know if they came in naturally or through operation of the game, or if we just brought them here and they disbanded. We'll have to put those together. Anything over 14,500, I send to Cape Town. Everything under that, I send down to Cristobal, and then have ships down there to take that freight out into the Pacific. We've got what coming down the line here? This is a construction group, but the Bobcats, U.S. Naval Construction Battalion. We'll get those out into the Pacific as fast as we can. They're already attached to Pacific Fleet. We don't have to buy those out. Of course, we've got the bombers training at Ogden here. I've also got something else coming down the rail. It's a base force. This is 1st U.S. Marine Corps Air Wing Base, and look at that, 90 aviation support. So something like this you want on Suva, potentially in Auckland. You may take it over to Townsville, but you probably want it on one of the islands. Really, this one looks good for Suva. If we can get it out there, is always the question. Down at Cristobal, you can see we've got new. You pretty much get a ship or two every turn down here, and you bundle them up. Let's see what we got in this time. 14,700. So this is right on the edge of the endurance that can make it from East Coast to Cape Town. We'll probably I don't know. I'm not sure. We need more coming out into the Pacific. So given it's this close, we may just have that one go East Coast to Cristobal, or we may have it go Cristobal to Haivaoa or to Tahiti. We'll see. And then we've got one over here on this side at Balboa. Oh, this is a destroyer. Excellent. So we'll just, put this in as probably an ASW. You could do that or surface combat. I usually, when it's just lone destroyers, put ASW. Is this one of the better destroyers for the U.S.? I say better. This is the best the U.S. has got at this point, a 4. So we'll just send these up to Los Angeles. We'll just, there we go, Los Angeles. And we'll put the home port at Los Angeles, of course. And you can see it comes out of the penalty box right there and into LA. Speaking of LA and San Diego, not a whole lot going on here. I did bring a transport here. Oh, this has got 2nd Marine Regiment. So I had brought this transport group, the Henry T. Allen and the Exmoor over here, and they're loading up 2nd Marine Regiment. And if we look at that, what its assault value is, it's like 55. I mean, it's not super powerful force, but it'll make a difference potentially out on an island. So we'll get that out. I bring these transports over. I tell them to remain on station. So when I have it the next turn, they haven't tried to return back to whatever their home port is. We pick that up, boom, And then I think this will come back to, I've got it coming back to San Diego. Let's actually have that come back to Los Angeles. And I'm not sure where we're going to send this yet. Probably straight down to Haiva first, because this is where I like to bring, you can see my batch of ships here. I like to bring everything down there first. It's the safest place to go on the map. Fingers crossed. Come down to Haiva, then we decide. It's like getting behind your offensive line in American football. We could run this way, we could run this way. We'll see. Out here we'll get back to Los Angeles in a minute. Out here, I've got just a ton of transports. First Marine Raiders on its way to Haiva area. I've got some destroyers actually coming back into Los Angeles here. I've got my usual patrols going on. Patrol craft and the short range submarines are all out here. We've got tankers. This is a huge tanker group that's coming back into Los Angeles. You saw the escort there. This is how I'm doing it. Two destroyers, a destroyer mine layer. They've all got some ASW ability, and I'm making sure. That's why we're losing so many fewer ships. Is I'm just really making sure with these escorts. I've got this coming in. You can see two destroyers, a destroyer mine sweeper, the Southard, and then we've got a lot of cargo, dry cargo ships in that group. This one's actually coming into San Diego. I don't like that. I like everything running out of Los Angeles. It's just easier for me to, keep keep straight in my mind. I know everything's in Los Angeles or San Francisco, and that way I don't have to keep checking every single port when I do a setup. Because unlike when I'm flapping my jaws at you guys, when I do my own setup, and I do it offline, I do it fairly quickly, really. Um, sometimes life gets in the way, but it doesn't take me that long, probably just a couple hours to do a turn. You can see here tankers going back to Vancouver, and that's what you'll see in the tanker groups to Vancouver. Three KVs, these Corvettes, they've got good four anti-sub. We've got them escorting these three massive tankers back and forth to Vancouver till the end of the game. I've got a bunch of destroyers out here looking. Well, that's not destroyers, looking for his subs. Now, when we brought our carriers back and forth, we uncovered he's got a huge picket line of subs here, and I've got destroyers out here looking for them. Um, you can see there's more of them. I've got them running these big patrols, trying to figure out where the heck they are. Now, here's a transport. This has got a lot of planes on it. So this is 49th PG. You can see I messed up again, Stanley. I'm sorry. I put the headquarters squadron on a transport again. I got to stop doing that. I say transport, but it's actually a cargo ship that's been turned into it. Now, these are the Hammondsport and the Kitty Hawk are specialized air transport ships. They don't have to disassemble and reassemble the planes. Instead, the planes are loaded on whole onto these AKVs. So these are very valuable because it saves you about 5 days of, or 6 days maybe, of disassembling them and then reassembling them. And you can see these are all part of two U.S. Fighter Command. And I've actually got the command here on the ship. And so you can see the air command here. This is almost all of two U.S. fighter group. Now, ideally, I would station that out of Suva, but things have become so hot and heavy in and around Suva. We'll see. We'll see. Where do I have this going initially? I think to Tahiti. Yeah, I've got it staging to Tahiti, remain on station. So it's going to sit there and we're going to think about it. This is also so valuable that I put four escorts along with it, three destroyers and a destroyer mine layer to come out with this. I mean, this is a lot of planes. I think it's almost 100 planes total. So, would I be better to split these up? Potentially, but we're a little low on destroyers. So I sent them all together and then we'll see where we go from there. I think this is just a big cargo task force, tanker and cargo. All right, but they all have the same speed. They're going back to, I've got them going back to, I don't know why these are on San Diego. This should probably be on San Francisco or LA, one of the two. I don't really have much come out of San Diego. Every once in a while, I'll send a tanker or a cargo group down there just because San Diego builds up so much fuel and supply that I just kind of try to clear it out a little bit every once in a while. But I'm not sure why I had these both going back to San Diego. Again, I mean, these are all transports headed to the Pacific. Two U.S. fighter, we just looked at that. We've got, again, I did it, man. I got to stop doing that. I'm wasting transports. It's just another AK. It's not a huge deal, but you can disband these and they absorb into the others. 35th PG here. Again, I've got this going to Tahiti, remaining on station, and it'll sit there at Tahiti until I decide what to do with it. Coming back in and out of Pearl Harbor, I've actually got well, these are transports that have dropped off. This 101st tried to get into Suva, almost got destroyed. We got it out of there. It's only got remnants of 101st. Oh, no, that's not right. Pago Pago. Whenever we were getting attacked at Suva, this was at Pago. That transport group was at Pago Pago. And if we look here, 101st Base Force, I got most of it on the ground, including 33 of the normal, I think 40 aviation support in this. But some of the remnants had to head back to Hawaii, so that's heading up there. I've also got cargo coming out here to Palmyra. You can see we're also dropping off 4th Marine Defense. Now, this will give Palmyra two of these Marine Defense. You've got enough of them in some places you could double up. I'm also getting supply down here when I know where his carriers are. So we don't think his carriers are over here, no surface fleet over here. So I'm getting supply in here. Build this up as much as you can. Get it to 15,000, 20,000, because when the Japanese come, you're not going to be able to get any more supply in there. You don't want these guys to starve out. What is this? This is a little cargo ship. This actually went down to Canton. I got into Canton because he's very occupied kind of southwest of here. So we got a little bit of supply into Canton, which he has not come after yet. As you can see, we've got subs in front of that, just like we do Christmas, just like we do Palmyra. I've got these kind of defensive subs. If he brings any kind of invasion force, hopefully they'll get a shot or two off that actually work at one of his transports. So I'm unloading at Palmyra. Right now, I just have recon out here, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to take off the arc and just have it fly the big arc and see whatever it can see. I need to get fighters down here, and we will hop them down here. And one of the ways we can do that is, I think there's a group of Warhawks that's Pacific Fleet. Well, these are Airacobras. Can I get them down there? Using drop tanks, they can go 21 hexes. So see, not using drop tanks, some of your planes, when you're in the right places, can use drop tanks. You can see the maximum range is 11. Use drop tanks, 21. Can we get to Palmyra? We cannot. We could get out to Johnston Island, which is showing us range 19. This does allow us to hop out to Johnston. So let's take those Airacobras and we'll put them out here on Johnston Island. And now we've got some fighters out here, two groups of them, as a matter of fact. I've got this one group of Airacobras and I've got this two group. Now I think when I really did the setup for this, I actually did not hop these out to Johnston. So when we look at Johnston in the future, I think I've only got one group of these Airacobras. There are some Warhawks here that I did split. They may be just in the Hawaiian group. Mohawks. What's the Mohawks range? 16. Okay. What's the maximum range on the Warhawks? 12. So the Mohawks are really better to skip out to these places, but they don't have the drop tank capability. The Warhawks do, you can see there. I think they can go up to 26. Let's just divide this unit into threes. So when you click divide unit, it's going to go into thirds, and you can see it's A, the next one will be B, the next one will be C. Okay, so let's go to A. Let's put drop tanks on. That does take it to a 26. Let's see how far we can get now. That's what I did. Now you can see there's Palmyra. It's 26 away. These guys can go 26. Hey, we got planes on Palmyra now. So that's just an easy way to get them down here. I wish we could get them to Midway. I can tell you in our setup, I do have, so now we've shipped A down to Palmyra. I take B, I put it on a cargo ship, and I go up to Midway. He doesn't seem to be pressuring Midway at all. And so I'm going to put some Warhawks up on Midway as well. So now we'll have Airacobras on Johnston, Warhawks on Palmyra, Warhawks on Midway, and I'll also take a cargo ship and put the other, excuse me, or the C group of those Warhawks on Christmas Island. All right, so every one of these islands has some air cover, so we can't just come bomb the airfield or the port and make them an untenable position. I've got some mine layers that I sent out here. They're going to go back to Pearl Harbor, Hiva Oa. We've got things dropping off. We also have support vessels, AVDs, AVPs that we're going to auto disband here. As a matter of fact, we'll just disband them. And then I've got an AO, the Sabine. Now, what I'm doing, these are out of Cristobal, out of the Panama Canal. I'm doing the first run and I'm dropping off fuel. You can see the massive uh, capacity here, 14,950. We're going to need a lot of fuel here. I'm going to go back, get more fuel, and then I'll have it sit here as a refueling station as well. We'll keep it on the ship, so if something runs out of fuel down here, we can go refuel kind of all in this area with the Sabine. So that one is ticketed for Hiva Oa. As you can see, I've got some transports almost down here. The 185th Infantry, we've got it stopped right here. 185th Infantry, I have ticketed for Australia, so we will get it going that way. Tahiti, I've got a tanker group in here unloading so that we have fuel here at Tahiti, and we're building kind of the secondary line back here of friendly ports where we can get fuel, we could get repaired with a repair ship, we could rearm with one of the tenders. So we got a lot going on there. We got a plane transport here. These are the 22nd Bombing Group. These guys I'm going to drop off at Dunedin. I've been told it's Dunedin or Dunedin. Yes, not Dunedin. I've been calling it Dunedin. It's Dunedin. We're going to drop them off there. We're going to put drop tanks on them, and then we'll fly them to Australia. It's just safer to do it that way. That's what I'll do with a lot of the bombing groups. Now, speaking of which, the fighter groups, what's a safe way to do those? Well, we got to get a base force out to Norfolk Island. Once you do that, you can bring every plane in the game into New Zealand, get it up here into W Town, Wapapakari, and then you can fly it to Norfolk, Nomaya, Suva, Pago, Lord Howe, Australia. You can fly everything out of New Zealand to bases once you have Norfolk. Now, usually I get this done very early, but he's been pressuring down here, so we didn't have as much time this time. Unfortunately, we've got to get fighters to Suva. The other way you can get fighters out here if you're getting pressured at Suva or Nomaya um, is you can bring them into either Penryn or down here at Rarotonga. Okay, so we're going to get a base force in at Rarotonga, a base force with good aviation support at Penryn. Then you can bring them, you could either even bring them into Tahiti and skip them, all right, up this way to Pago and then from Pago to Suva, or you could go, straight into Penryn, Penryn to Pago and up, or you can go straight into Rarotonga up this way. So Norfolk, your skipping bases, as I call them, are Norfolk. You could use Lord Howe, if you need to, uh, but Norfolk, Rarotonga, and Penryn allows you to not have to bring transports and or when you're bringing air transport, you don't have to bring it all the way to the island. Okay, over in Australia, what do we have going on? The most important thing over here, we'll talk more about Australia, is this sighting we had over Perth. We know there are at least 3 battleships in here. Okay. Now, what are we going to do about that? Because we can't have Perth shut down. We just can't. I mean, we can't afford it. Well, I've got, well, that's the DD ISIS. Yes, this is it. This is a just big group of surface vessels, surface fleet here. The Houston cruiser, and the Houston's actually a pretty good ship. It's got quite a bit of gun power. Um, and you can see guns in this total. We've got 1705, 1726 on the AA. ASW is not great. Torps 50. Okay. Um, so I've got this group. Now, this group is not strong enough to take on 3 battleships. That just can't happen. So I'm bringing a surface fleet that was down here at Melbourne sitting here that includes 2 more cruisers, the Australia and the Canberra, 4 more light cruisers, and a destroyer. I've also got a destroyer here. So now when we're adding up what we've got in this group, it would then be 8 light cruisers, 3 cruisers, and I think we can put together 5 or 6 destroyers. Now, I don't want to necessarily go confront them mano a mano. Obviously, 3 battleships is going to outgun 3 cruisers. Now, we should outnumber them by a great deal on the light cruisers and the destroyers, but sometimes if your light cruisers and destroyers' guns aren't powerful enough, they can't even damage a battleship. They could put a dent in the side of it, maybe they could, rattle the cage on this thing, but they can't actually really do any damage to it. Very minor damage. They're not going to get anything. Now the torpedoes can. A torpedo can get in here and blow it. So those smaller ships, their guns really aren't what you're going to take down a battleship with. It's going to be a torpedo, or maybe one of the cruisers gets a light shot on, or a lucky shot in. Now, ultimately what we have here is not enough. What is this? This is another. These are 2 more light cruisers. Okay, so we've got like 10 light cruisers. That's what I've got these 2 merging out here. So that's going to make it a cruiser and 6 light cruisers, and then we've got 2 other. Oops, this one. We've got 2 other cruisers and 4 more light cruisers. So like 10 light cruisers altogether. Again, you don't really want those matching up against battleships, but we can't let him just sit here, right? We don't really have the number of torpedo bombers that we can run out of Perth here to harry him. We do have these fighters in here now. I just got them over here, 15, and you can see they're listed as damaged. But they just have to be reassembled. We railed them over here. And so they're going to get up in escort. So luckily, these aren't carriers. We're going to get these fighters up to protect Perth. Now, the battleships aren't going to do much, but as far as taking out our air, but he is probably going to come in here and try to clean this port, as I call it. Come in here, get rid of all of our supply and fuel that we have, bombard the port maybe, uh, kill any of the ships that we have here. Speaking of which, we need to disband all these as he comes in. They'll be protected if they're disbanded. If they're part of a task force, they will not be. So disband those. What do we have here? The AM Latrobe, he's retreating. Let's put that on auto disband at Bustleton. So he'll come in here to Bustleton and auto disband. You can see I've now got all of my cargo down here. They were coming into Perth up here. These guys still are. And what we'll have to do is reroute them around here to either Albany or Esperance. Don't ever forget about these ports. It's very important that if he starts to shut off Perth somehow, that you've got to be running Cape Town to Australia. Otherwise, Australia will wither on the vine. And so we've got him going down and around here to Albany and Esperance. If you look at Albany and Esperance, level 3 fort, or a fort, port, not terrible. And we're expanding it here. You could get this up to a level 7 if you're willing to expend the supply and make this I mean, Perth is only, I say only, Perth is a 5 natural 4. If you look down here at Albany, it's a 3 natural 5. It's actually got a larger natural port than Perth. If you look at Esperance, it's got a 3 and 3. You can bring ships in here, but really Albany is the one because a lot of times Japanese players just, I mean, I'm not saying, I don't know. A lot of times Japanese players mainly play the Japanese. Shocker, right? I made myself laugh there. That's kind of self apparent. What I'm saying is they don't play the Allies enough to know little tricks of the trade like this. It was the same idea with Dunedin, right? Down here, their Japanese player is going to be focused on Wellington and Auckland. They're not thinking, oh, I probably should run a zero sweep over Dunedin to see what's going on there. I think that sounded better. Dunedin, yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to say it that way. Um, it's the same idea here. They're going to focus on Perth, all right? Why wouldn't they? This is the one they've heard of. This is the one that naturally you're thinking, oh, he's going to bring everything into Perth. It's the biggest uh, port over here on the western side of Australia, but it's actually not. Albany's the biggest natural port here, so build Albany and you can bring freight in here till the end of time, even if he thinks he's closed off Perth. And the way you can do it is just bring it down here and then up. And in a lot of cases, if he doesn't run recon, he'll never even know that it's happening. He'll be like, gosh, I wonder how he's getting all that supply into Australia. Well, it's because we're not going into Perth. We're going around to Albany. Now we'll see. But my guess is, I bet you he stops right here, and he never even comes around here and looks. And that's not a knock on Lodrick at all. I would say 99% of the Japanese players I've ever played do the same thing because it just makes sense to them, and they think, oh well, this is small little ports down here, and they don't realize Albany's actually a bigger natural port than Perth. So anyway, there was that idea. Up in the Dutch East Indies, we'll talk about those in future, or talk about that in future upcoming episodes. He hasn't really attacked here yet. He has run some planes uh, in and around here, but he hasn't really attacked there. Singapore, I have a feeling he's attacking either next turn or the turn after, so we'll have the Battle of Singapore. Hopefully, we can bloody his nose. We're not going to hold him off. We just don't have enough strength here. We still have a decent supply situation. Um, 38,000 plus he's got we have got 104,000 in fuel to turn into supply. So, I mean, we could last here for quite some time, but because we got trapped up here with quite a few forces, we don't really have the strength to hold him off. Now, this is a tough attack, right, for him. He's got to go across a river. Well, it looks like a river. It's really kind of the ocean, right? But he's got to go across that. That's a penalty. He's got to go to this little island fortress, but he will take it eventually. We'll see if it's on the first turn that he tries or not. I was looking for 224 Group RAF. There it is. There's 224. It's down in Singapore. Well, that's not long for the world. Once these get destroyed, though, they will respawn out at Cape Town. I believe I can't remember if it's Cape Town or Aden. I think it's Cape Town. These will respawn eventually, so you'll have a 224 command headquarters again. All right, this time I really wanted to look at China. We'll look at India. Let's just very quickly see, did we have a sighting of him over here? You can see everything is, into Karachi over here. And then when we get down here, it's Colombo, Madras, Oh, that's right. He's got a bunch of ships off of Calcutta here. So what we'll want to do is take these ships and disband them, or these task forces, and disband them so he can't just destroy them right in the dock. And now they're anchored. He can't really go in and do that at a port. Rangoon, Calcutta, Madras, Colombo. That's it. That's your iron parallelogram. Uh, if you know your geometry. Okay, let's go over to China because that's really what I want to look at because he has just absolutely devastated us in China. I've actually learned some things from him in this game. As an ally, I play the allies 99% of the time. It's what I know the best. It's what I enjoy. But I've learned some things about playing the Allies from watching him play the Japanese this time because his bombing campaign has just been brilliant. It's absolutely devastated us. And then he just comes in and mops up with ground units. Now, usually out here in Japan, the mistake most Japanese players make is they keep their forces very spread out. They do bombing, but it's kind of all over the place. It's scattershot. They hit here, but then they won't hit there for 3 or 4 turns, and they hit somewhere else or something. What he has done is balled up into a lot of strength in both the air and on the ground. And he's kind of done it in about I want to say 4 quadrants. He doesn't really have much air down here. At least he hasn't bombed much here yet. But he's created two big bully armies that we just can't stop. We don't have enough on the map to stop the big bully armies that he is balling up and just rolling over us. So it's not quite as apparent here in the south. He did come up here to Kukong and take that. He did take Hansen very quickly. I'm trying to get these troops out. Now, I've been trying forever to get them here. And remember, when you're getting bombed, sometimes your forces will switch over to combat mode, like right here. Make sure you switch them over to move, and then just do that with one of the units here, and then set all to that op mode, set all to that combat orders, and assuming this is going where you want it to, and it's not, I want it to be going there. This hex is where we're going to try to get to. Assuming you then have that on, just click set all to follow, and now set all to march, whatever, that doesn't really matter. But now they will all do exactly those things. If we click over the other one, he's following. Where does that say that? It should say he's following. Hold on. This is 28th Chinese Corps. Okay, well, it's not showing following for some reason. Hold on, set all to follow. Oh, it's because I hit set all to march after that. That reset it. Now you see, following 28th Chinese Corps. Okay, so he's just going to follow along with him. Now we could set them all to march. It doesn't really matter. I've got them set going to the same place. So they should all go to march, or they should all march together and go right here. Okay, that's what we want. Same with these guys. Now, he is in the same hex as this, so we don't necessarily want it to be on move. We want it to be on combat, defend. So we're going to do set all to this op mode, set all to this combat orders, set all to march. So they're on the march, but we've got them at Consent. That's not where we want them to go. We want them to go there, 8255. At first, we'll do set all to follow. Then we'll just click around and do set all to march because it reset this for all of them. 8255, 8255. You can see up here march objective 8255. All right, all the way down the line. So they're all going to head to this, we hope. All right, same thing over here. Let's get all of these guys trying to move here, and we can ball up into a big army. Hopefully set all to this op mode. Actually, we want these guys on move because nothing is in the hex with them, at least right now. Set all to this combat orders. Set all to march. All right. Actually, let's do set all to follow first and then set all to march. That way they're all going to the same hex. They're all marching there. All going here. But anyway, these are those units in Southeast Asia or Southeast China that have just gotten absolutely bombed into submission. He's got a lot of air power out here, and he's just bombing over and over and over. He hasn't really hit around the Changsha area. Now, I've got this group moving up here to Hangyang. They had gotten knocked out of Kukong. It's actually a decent force. It's got an assault strength of 897. So I mean, this is not a small unit. He's got 14,000 in infantry. We're going to put them in Hanyang. Now, up in this area, eventually you'll get shoved back, and you want to get behind this river at Hanyang so he can't come at you from the south. Changsha is very important. Now, you may eventually get knocked out of Changsha, certainly, but for now, you want to hold it. You want to build the fort. And then we've got reserves kind of back here at different bases that could run up here. You also do have some garrison requirements, like the one here. We've got a garrison requirement, so we've got to have this cavalry unit just kind of sitting here in the middle of nowhere. But just remember, you've got a garrison requirement at a few different places. Chungking, this is where everything comes into. And when you get some of these reserves, like this artillery, that one can't. Yeah, let's put it on move. All right. And you take it right down the road here to Kuayang. And once it gets here, then, is that true? Do I take it all the Kuai? I really want to take it all the way to Tuyun because then it can get on the rail. So let's march it all the way down to Tuyun. And as you see, that gets it on the major rail. So you can just march it there and then put it on the rail to Changsha, or you can put it on the road. If you wanted to go out here to Aicheng, you could put it on a major roadway out here so it moves faster. As you can see from Chungking, it's very hard to even get down to Aicheng. It's up on this plateau at Chungking. It's just hard to get down here. Okay, up here in the north, he has just done a masterful bombing campaign. We eventually had to drop out of Chengchao and Loyang. I'm now falling back. I'm trying to get into these hexes behind the river and avoid this big group he's got at Nanyang. He's balled up all of his forces into a massive force here, and he's just steamrolling us. Now, the only place on the map that where we could stop him is Aicheng, right? We've gotten kicked out of Nanyang. We've now gotten kicked out of Cyan. These guys, so Lanchao is very important. These guys are going to go to Lanchao. These guys are going to skip over and either go to this base or they're going to come down here and sit just behind the river, right? So you want things at this base, maybe behind the river here on this major road, I Cheng. You can't let him get to Chungking. I mean, this is red. This is the red zone. You can't let him get in there. Also, you've got to hold Lanchao with everything in the north and in the south down here, eventually you're going to get rolled up here. You can see he's going to take Wu Chao eventually. He's already taken Kukong. I'm trying to get these units out. Let's look at these very quickly. They've got an assault strength of 439. Let's go to the headquarters. Let's put them on move. Let's put them going back to Hengyang and try to get out of here before he can get at us. Set all to the SOP mode, all of this combat orders. Now, they should go to combat if they get attacked. You don't want these to be on move if they're already in the same hex as another unit, right? Because move makes them more vulnerable. But if you're in another hex and you think you can get out of it, sometimes you can put it on move. Now, the safer bet is to put it on combat, but we've got to get these things out of here. The guys on combat, fight much better than if they're on the move. I've got things coming back to Yan'an. Now, Yan'an, I would like to try to hold, but as you can see here, it's only worth 20 points, and it's very hard to defend it out here because it's hard to get supplies to it. So a lot of times I'll have these forces drop back to Lanchao. So Lanchao, of course, you're going to want to have a few things at Kongcheng. We want to have things back here at Kienko. And we also want to have things at Ankang, and then right here behind the river, I like to have a big force. So we can't just march up this road and get up to the plateau. If you look at the plateau, the best place for the Japanese to come is from the south, but it's also the hardest logistically for them to get fuel and supply to come from the south. So a lot of Japanese players like to come from the east, but how? These are big mountains. He could try to come up this road, so I try to defend this hex, this base. All right, we'll talk more about China as it goes along. This is going a little long, so I'm going to call this an episode. When we come back next time, we'll look at the combat resolution for this turn, see what happened. We'll see what's going on down there by Perth. We may end up getting in a scrap where we're outgunned, but I think it's worth it to just try to knock him back a little bit. But we'll see. We'll see. All right, this has been Strategy Gaming Dojo. Have a great one. I'll talk to you next time.